Welcome to Unbound. I'm your host, author Elizabeth J. Smith. In this podcast series, I will be sharing with you insider information about my books, writing process, paperback creation, and more. Occasionally, I will be doing a reading from one of my books as well. This is a series for readers who want to delve a little deeper into my work, or perhaps learn a little more about writing and book formatting. Let's talk cover design. Up front, I'll admit I'm not an expert on this, but prior to designing my first cover, I did a lot of research online and also by looking at a lot of book covers. I hope you'll be able to benefit from what I've learned. So, let's get started. You'll see on your screen that I've put up a photo of the cover for my first book, Tales of Hereford Grange, Volume 1. Now, shameless plug. All of my books are available on Amazon in paperback and on Kindle. Get your copy today if you haven't already. Alright, end of shameless plug. Back to cover design. My Tales of Hereford Grange series is comprised of Christian historical romance short stories. I wanted my cover to radiate that without having to spell it out. I chose a classics look, much like you might see on the paperbacks of Jane Austen. I went with a photograph. This one was free on Canva.com, which is the site on which I design my book covers. They're not paying me to say this, but I highly recommend Canva.com for all of your marketing graphics, book covers, etc. It's easy to use, has a great free version, and can be used for business purposes. The photo I chose is a picture of an English cottage with a delightful flower garden in front. I felt that it best captured the aesthetic I was going for: peace, tranquility, village life, and sweet love. Since each of the 4 stories in the book has a different theme and subject, I didn't want to focus on one, leaving the others out. This cover encapsulates the entire book with a theme of home. In terms of color, I went with teal because it has a modern flair to it and complements the photo. I didn't want my cover to look stuffy and out of date, and I love the vibrancy of these colors together. In terms of font, I chose Roxborough CF size 26 for my title and Satisfy for my subtitle size 28. The author name, as well as Satisfy size 36. I felt that these 2 fonts bridged the gap between vintage and modern nicely and gave me the look I was going for. I used the lift effect at 100% on these fonts to make them pop and easier to read. And I think it makes it look more professional. For consistency, all covers in this series use these same fonts and general styling. Make sure when you are working with your cover to include a little extra waste on all sides, around 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, depending on how much of a safety net you need. You'll have to position your design elements with this in mind, or your cover will look off-center. I chose to have the teal color wrap around from the spine to give it a bound look, much like a classic novel. Speaking of the spine, you don't want it to look cluttered, so I went simple: the title, volume number, and my author name. The font is also Roxborough CF size 8. Since the spine is so narrow, the font is small but easy to read. This is the same format for all volumes in the series. Now to the back. This is where you want to put all of your pertinent information. You want the cover to attract a potential reader and make them turn the book over. If you'll notice on your screen, I started with a tagline at the top and a slightly larger font before flowing into my description. I used 2 paragraphs on this volume, general and specific. At the bottom of the back cover, you'll see my About the Author section. My font is Times New Roman, and new is spelled N-E-U-E. and the font is 14 for the tagline and 11.5 for the description. So let's look at the tagline. Put the kettle on and spend a delightful evening with the villagers of Hereford Grange. Once again, I didn't want to focus in too closely on one story. My purpose was to evoke in the reader the idea that they could get themselves a nice warm beverage and curl up for an hour or two with my book. Each of the stories can be read in 1 to 2 sittings, so you don't have to make a long commitment. I also wanted the reader to feel invited to spend time with and get to know my characters, just as one might get to know a new friend over pleasant conversation and a cup of tea. So on to the general description. The first line, set in the style of Jane Austen with a modern twist, tells the reader what type of stories these are. I'm not saying I'm as good of a writer as Jane Austen, only that is the feeling and effect I'm going for. My stories are also modern, in that while I include much of the technology, morality, and customs of the Regency and Victorian periods, my characters also go outside of these boundaries on occasion and act or speak in ways that would be considered much more like we do today. I then proceed to tell what the series is about, the setting, and the general characters. So, set in the style of Jane Austen with a modern twist, the tales of Hereford Grange tell of the loves and lives of the members of the Church of Christ at Hereford Grange, a fictional town in late 1800s England. That is fairly self-explanatory. Next, I list the 4 titles in order and sum up the feel of the book as a whole. In essence, it contains both serious and funny stories, and all of them are heartwarming. So, the general description reads as follows. Set in the style of Jane Austen with a modern twist, the tales of Hereford Grange tell of the loves and lives of the members of the Church of Christ at Hereford Grange, a fictional town in late 1800s England. 4 short stories complete this first volume, The Doctor's Daughter, The Farrier's Girl, The Butcher's Lady, and The Shopkeeper's Love. Some are serious and some light-hearted, but all are sure to warm your heart. Before we move on, I'd like to point out that I fiddled with my paragraphs to get them to have a pleasing look. No single words are left hanging, book titles are on the same line in the specific description, and the lines are not running to the edge of the text area. All of the text in the description is also centered. You could justify yours however you wish, just make sure it is easy to read and pleasing to the eye. In the specific description, which I would say is optional, I use 2 sentences to describe each story. The first gives the basic theme or subject of the story, while the second is a hook question. When the reader sees the hook, their mind automatically wants to know the answer to the question. If they want to know bad enough, they will read your book. Let's read through this section and you'll see what I mean. Listen for my use of key words and action verbs. The Doctor's Daughter is a comedy of errors as the new doctor seeks to woo his nurse, the former doctor's daughter. Can he overcome her false perceptions and win her heart? Prejudice can take many forms, as is seen in The Farrier's Girl. What will it take to break the ice between the new farrier and the wealthiest girl in town? In The Butcher's Lady, learning to trust takes center stage. When the butcher discovers the woman he loves is being exploited, can he earn her trust and kindle her love? The last story is a tale of second chances and forgiveness. Will an ex-convict be able to overcome his past to be the shopkeeper's love? Can you tell I've read that a few times? Okay, so note that I don't use names or too many details. Keep it brief and a little mysterious. I also try to incorporate the story titles into the sentences and questions, as well as vary the format of each one. I don't continue my format of The Doctor's Daughter is with The Farrier's Girl is, The Butcher's Lady is, The Shopkeeper's Love is. Use your writing skills to make your back cover just as interesting as your interior is. there we go again. Draw a reader in, but keep it simple and streamlined. So, did you hear my keywords and action verbs? Here they are. Seeks to woo, overcome, win her heart, break the ice, earn her trust, kindle her love, and overcome once again. Most readers want to see how the characters conquer their challenges rather than watch them passively glide through the story. Show that challenge and determination to succeed through your words. Lastly, let's look briefly at the author section. I've divided it from the description by a simple line of dots in a coordinating seafoam green. I've continued that look through the rest of my series, merely changing the color. The most important part of this section is my website. It's nice and big, size 18 Roxborough CF font. I've chosen to add the lift effect at 100% to make it eye-catching. I've included my photo since this is my first published series, and many romance and Christian readers like to see what the author looks like. I don't plan to put my picture on all of my future series. Next, I added a brief bio and another call to action with a find out more sentence in my website once again. I put the Facebook symbol on the back cover as well, which was provided by Canva, because it's my main social media platform. I didn't want to clutter up the back with too many symbols. If a reader is interested in connecting with me outside of Facebook, I have provided my website as an alternative. Moving on to the cover of Volume 2, you'll see on your screen that while I've kept the basic style from Volume 1, I changed the color scheme to a corally pale red. The photograph of baked goods, those look good, shows a little of what this volume is about. I also adjusted the size of the title box to accommodate the longer subtitle. The first book was titled the same as the series, Tales of Hereford Grange. However, the second volume is really titled Mysteries of Hereford Grange, and that's font size 26. Therefore, I made the series name and volume number smaller, font size 18. I used a divider line to separate my series name and volume number from the volume title. It provides a break for the eyes as opposed to 4 uninterrupted lines of text. My name format is unchanged. On the back of Volume 2, it looks pretty much the same except for the wording. I used another general tagline connecting the elements of love and mystery in the story. I welcome my readers back, making them feel at ease and at home. I will use the same intro sentence in all volumes, but I changed the rest of the general description to tell how this volume differs in format. My specific descriptions are broken into 2 paragraphs, one for each story. Once again, I didn't use names or specifics. Make your reader want to read your book. However, you can use names if you wish, especially if you're describing a novel rather than short stories. I do find it confusing, though, if the back cover indicates that the story will be told from one character's perspective, or even 2, while it's really told by 4, 5, or 6, but that is just my opinion. For verity, I used 2 brief description sentences and then my hook question. I'll read it for you. Verity, a mystery in 3 parts, tells the story of a young woman with a mysterious past. She enlists the help of her arch-enemy and former childhood friend, the village constable, to discover the truth about a series of bizarre documents. Will she be able to answer the questions of her past without forever losing the love of her future? I point out the subject matter, a young woman with a mysterious past, in the conflict, asking for help from an enemy, as well as their goal to discover the truth behind a series of bizarre documents. My hook juxtaposes the elements of past and future, as well as the finality of lost love. I use action verbs and key words. Can you spot them? Mysterious, archenemy, discover, truth, bizarre, and answer. For un duel de la boule, which coincidentally rhymes, that was not on purpose, guys, I went with a very vague description as to not give anything away. As with Volume 1, it's one description sentence and a hook question. Let's see if you can find my keywords and action verbs on your own this time. Alright, I think that about wraps that up. If you guys have any questions about my cover designs or covers in general, feel free to leave a message in the comments below, or you can contact me on my website, authorelizabethjsmith.com, by going to the contact page under the About Me tab, or through the social media of your choice. As I said, I'm not an expert, I just enjoy sharing with others what I've learned. So until next time, see you soon!